surprised by the number at all.
You're not surprised by this number at all?
No, because we are at home. I know, I mean, personally, I felt it because I know people who are stuck or we are very close to somebody who has the disease. So it's spread across the world. There are at least some people who know someone who's actually having the coronavirus. So
Wow.
that impacts us, and mentally we become anxious, as you mentioned. Mentally you become anxious, and even though it may not be in Bangalore, it may not be in your own town, you know somebody who's going through this. So it doesn't seem so far away. It seems very close to us. So
Right.
that's why mentally we become a little bit more anxious.
Right. True. True. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to pitch in with any other perspective or comment?
Can I come in?
Sure.
Neeti?
Hi.
I think the university got impacted hugely. We were to send 8 students to France and 16 students to US and students to Switzerland. And I think for last 1 year, we were preparing, but I feel sad for the students because they had gone through for last 1 year with the interviews and visa preparation, ticketing, and everything got cancelled. So we have sent them the mails. So obviously, because all this was happening this month, April and May, so around 34 students directly impacted who were to go. And then we about to get 10 students from UK, and I feel extremely sad because they all lost the money because they already booked the tickets and they were to come, but it was too risky to call them here, and obviously I had to cancel that whole group which were to come to Christ. So that also impacted. So I feel sad that many students of Christ University have been hugely impacted. Similarly, our students were in and in US. Some continue to be in France and US. We had sent them the and that the Indian embassy talked to their parents and then take the decision. So they are all hunkering down, and some of them have returned safely. So we have been monitoring.
Right. It's a huge impact. It's not like both of you have said. Thank you for sharing that. It's not just to us individually, it's to the people whom we know, whether those are our colleagues, whether they're family members, whether they're neighbors, whether they're our students, everywhere around us. Like I've said on the slide, that whenever there is some kind of a crisis, it's very rare that you will find people who are not at all impacted by it. So when we look at impact, as some of you rightly pointed out, there is different. I mean, we see some people who are very mildly impacted, and then some people who have got a very severe impact. And we can't really predict who's going to have what kind of an impact, right? Some people may not show any stress reactions whatsoever to what's going on. They may seem perfectly fine, and that's that small percentage that we saw in our group as well. The time to recover as well really varies. There's some people who might be feeling it very intensely, some people who went through a phase and now seem to be on the rebound and coming back to normal. But again, we don't know who's gonna recover when and how long that they would take. And that's from an individual impact. When we look at it from an organizational perspective, I think the picture says it all, right? Normality is cancelled. Where we were 1 month back, we were thinking about exams, we were thinking about admissions, some of you all were planning travel, some of you all were planning conferences, so many things that have got completely disrupted in terms of the operations and business. I mean, look at us right now, we're doing this call on Zoom, which pretty much most of us have probably never used before all of this began. right? And so these different impacts, which are kind of listed out there, and I want to point out that one of them does actually include loss of lives. So far, thank God, as far as I know, we haven't experienced any loss to our students or to our staff, but there is a real potential and possibility of that actually happening at some point in the future. We can't ignore that, right? Um, so when we look at the way that we respond to crises, basically there's four kind of ways that it can go. All right. So if there's some kind of a crisis event, obviously there's an immediate impact that we have. But what happens after that? Well, one version is obviously we'd like people to come back to normal, and that's the dotted green line over there. But that doesn't always happen. What sometimes happens is that some people kind of succumb to what has happened, and they may take a very long time, or they may not actually recover. And that's from an individual perspective. Apply the same thing to organizations. You have I'm sure you're reading the papers where you're seeing about some companies which are just shutting down because they're not going to be able to sustain their business. The second thing that can happen is that there will be some kind of a recovery, but maybe not as it used to be before. So some kind of impairment might be there. The third version is everything comes back to normal. And of course, this is what we would all love, that we would recover back to normal and everything would be fine. But the fourth version is the version that we really ought to be striving towards, which is the version where we are thriving, right? So we're looking hopefully for resilience, and we're looking hopefully for thriving when we're looking in terms of consequences to a crisis, right? And so what all of this has meant is that many of you all have been having to manage the crisis at an individual level as well as at a department level. And that's pretty challenging because there's a lot of information that's coming there, and we have to make decisions. We have to make them pretty quickly. Sometimes we don't have enough information. I'm talking right now about managing crises and how that's very challenging in terms of having to decide quickly in the absence of enough information. There's way too much information, in fact. And if we act too fast, then we might have been hasty. But if we act too slow, then we might have missed the boat. Right? There's also an obligation on our part to ensure that we are, having an ongoing prevention and minimization of the crisis. And the goalpost keeps changing, and every day it's different. And so we need to keep adapting to that. And there's also the legal complexities that we have. We need to make sure we're staying within line and then avoiding media scrutiny. And so what happens often is that we tend to do a lot of management and we don't tend to do a lot of leadership. Right? So we end up with crises often being the famous phrase of being over led. And so I want to kind of differentiate here between what it is that we're doing when we are managing a situation. So if you look at it in terms of all the processes, all the systems, and or putting all of those things in place, versus when I'm leading people, which is more people-based, guiding them on what they need to be able to do. And I'm sure our colleagues here who are from the management department would be able to explain that way better, but that's my simple explanation of it. Right? So I'm going to move here and I'm going to ask you a question. If you were the VC and a staff were to die from COVID-19, what would you do? Or, and I'm going to give you different options here. What would you do for the university staff? What would you do for the deceased staff's family? What would you do for other staff who have lost their family or home? And what would you do for the team of the deceased person? So can I have a couple of volunteers? You can pick any one of those four options, whichever you feel comfortable, and let me know what you would do if this situation were to happen. You need to unmute though first. Pick anyone. The sooner you get in, the easier the one that you get to choose. Otherwise, you'll get the hard ones left. But if you're uncomfortable with speaking it up, then we have the chat, and you could type it into that. And perhaps Sam also could help me with reading some of that, because I notice as I'm toggling between the chat and the window, I seem to be losing the screen in between.
Yeah, if I was then as a university staff died or was affected by COVID?
The person died. I'm sorry.
Person died. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the first, I think the first as a university staff, that is a total staff, is it?
Yes. What would you do for the university staff if some other staff were to die?
Okay.
There is one that's come out in the message that says perhaps there ought to be a contingency plan to be able to react to situations, being proactive than being reactive. That is one. There's another one that says ensure adequate protection and resources for people who have come in contact. It's all still yeah. And maybe for the team, we should first ensure the safety of all the staff. So and there's one that says should support the diseased staff, family, morally, and financially.
Very good. Okay.
The team of the diseased staff, speak to the team of the diseased staff, understand they may be anxious and dealing with grief and provide resources to overcome it.
Very good.
Another one. Protection protocol could be developed, boost morale of the university staff by providing counseling, take necessary health management strategy to avoid any further calamity, like a medical plan.
Right, very good. So an insurance plan right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Sam. One more chance if anybody else wants to get a word in before I move on.
I think there was financial support for family. I think that's repeated. And there's another one that says, so they don't have to go through the financial source or something. Yeah.
Can I put my view?
Yes, sir. Please do.
So if there is, I have typed in the chat also. Sometimes it may happen if that age is not mentioned here. So die from COVID-19. So if the age is less. So in that case, and the wife, the family, means the wife is not working and there is no source of finance, some kind of job may be created based upon the qualification of her wife with proper, it should come through a proper channel, what we follow. So that financially it can be supported. So it is very important because after that, what they will do. So it's a major social issue. So some kind in this way, financial assistance can be provided, not just giving money and closing the door. So some opportunity should be created in that case.
Okay. All right. I'm noticing that a lot of you are talking about the deceased staff's family and maybe the team of the deceased staff. What about other staff who lost their family or home as well? Anyone wants to weigh in on that?
Can I take a chance? It's
Please.
Isabel Fino here.
Yeah, hi, Fino.
So I think if I was the VC, I would want to make sure that I communicate trust to all of them, whether it is the team members or whether it is other staff whose family or home is gone. For me, it would be primarily regaining and retaining trust in that team. So first with university staff, I would want to communicate what happened and how things went bad and how we are sorry about it. So some kind of a communication where there is a lot of consolation and condolence. Deceased staff's family, I would definitely support, because if I am not personally, getting a report from that staff member, I would designate that job to the immediate boss or colleague of that deceased staff, and I would ask him or her to interact with the family and keep them uh, keep them consoled. Other staff who lost their family or home, I would definitely disseminate information to all the second line leadership and the next line of leadership, that give us information about what pains they are going through. How do we give them some kind of a solace at this difficult time? And I would empower that line of leadership to do the needful, instead of me myself going and visiting them or giving them some relief. And the last one, team of the disease staff, I think as an administrator, I would be bothered about, is work getting stuck? So I would definitely get those people together as a team. I would definitely have so much of sorrow that they are going to share with me. I would have to take that pain as well. But I would want to see who among you is willing to step in and take up that job that this deceased person was doing, and how can we take things forward? We can't stop work, so how would we move forward? So that's my 4 points. Thank you.
Wonderful. Excellent. I think that's a very comprehensive answer, which covers just about all the variables. Excellent. Thank you so much. Let me move to the part and what I think Finu to some extent was also emphasizing. If we're going to have effective business continuity taking place, then we need our staff to carry on the work. And if we're saying that we want them to carry on the work, then first of all, they've got to be healthy and fit to return to work. Right? So fit does not mean physically fit in terms of exercise fit, but just emotionally and psychologically ready to come back to work as well. Do they feel secure and safe to resume work? Do they have trust, as Finu pointed out, in the leadership at all, that the leadership is going to take care of them, is going to be doing the right things for them? And more than anything else, do they even want to come back to work at all? Right? And that's something that you also need to think about, because people might be saying, if let's say that our chief minister takes off the lockdown in 2 or 3 weeks and he says everybody can come back to work, is everyone going to feel safe to come back to work, ready to come back to work? Some people may say, no, I'm not comfortable, I'm not ready, I don't think it's safe, I'd rather continue from home another couple of weeks. And then you might have another bunch who might say that, no, we're fine, I'm just waiting to get out of the house and I'll be happy to come to work and work again. How do you choose and what kind of policy do you have for these different kinds of situations that we might face? So where I want to go with all of this is that crises are crucibles for leaders. Right? And a crucible is sort of like that picture that you're seeing over there, which is where we would melt metal way back when alchemists would try to melt metal and try to make it into gold. And that's where it is. It's a refining process. It's a transformative process for leaders. 30 years ago, the university had a choice as to what is it that it wanted to do in the way that it was handling the situation with the students. And it transformed itself. And right now, you are at another crucible moment for all of you all as leaders. Right? This is again another trial and test for all of you. This is again something that nobody ever plans for. And it's something that you need to reflect upon as to what is it that is important to you. Right? And what kind of person are you going to be in the way that you handle this situation, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover 5 points on a couple of practices that we can keep in mind. I would like you to reflect on them in terms of what is it that I need to start doing if there are some of the things that I'm not already doing. What are the things that I need to stop doing if I'm saying some things which you think that are not so good and I can afford to stop them? And then, of course, what will I continue doing? I'm going to come back to this at the end, and I'm going to ask you to contribute. What are some of the points that you are noting down in terms of what you will start, stop, and continue doing? Right? So I hope that's okay with all of you. I'm going to move to the first one. And the first one is a picture that I'm going to show you. And you tell me, what is it that you see over here, and what is drawing your attention? In the picture, what do you see, and what is drawing your attention? And maybe you all can speak up, because this seems pretty easy. It should just be a couple of answers. So let's hear from a few people who perhaps haven't had a chance to talk yet.
Well, predator and the prey.
Sorry, say that again.
There's a predator and there's a prey.
There's a predator and there's a prey. All right. Okay.
Well, both of them are looking at us. Away from each other.
Both of them are looking at us. Okay. All right.
And both of them are not running away from each other.
And both are not running away from each other.
They're
Okay.
comfortable where they
Focus
are.
of predator.
Can I pitch in?
Yeah, please.
No, what we are seeing the picture is that some of the maybe below something which is behind that cheetah, but we are not saying what is in the front of the cheetah. So as a leader, I think we should see what is in front of us rather than seeing what is at the back of us.
Okay. All right.
Is a case of strong defense.
Okay. Strong defense by whom? Who's defending?
The people at the back.
Okay, so the wildebeest
Yes.
animals in the back. All right, they're putting up a strong defense. All
Yes.
right. Okay.
Cheetah is not looking back. Actually, it's looking forward, but being aware of things are dangers actually behind.
Okay. All right. So the cheetah knows is not paying attention to what's behind, but what's ahead. All right.
Paying attention, but not looking back.
Okay. All right. Is aware of it, but not looking back.
Yeah, I think it's a time to strategize.
Sorry, could you say that again, sir?
I think it's a time to strategize.
Could you explain how you get that from the picture, sir?
Because this is a time to think about our move forward.
Okay.
Next move. I mean.
It's
all right. Okay.
Relating to Professor Joshi, I think it's a change process.
The change process. Okay. It's very interesting. All of you all have come up with so many different perspectives, which I did not think of at all when I was putting this picture up. So let me try and share what it is that I was actually looking at. If you pay attention to this picture from a photography or from a painting, whatever perspective, what draws your attention and what all of you all have commented on is the cheetah in the front. And then you'll have been paying attention to what's in the midground. So the cheetah is in the foreground. And then what's in the midground is the wildebeest. And very few of you have mentioned what is in the background, which is those mountain range that we see. So the reason why I wanted to show you this picture is that when we are going through certain crises, biologically survivor instinct, we tend to narrow down and focus on what is immediately in front of us. Right? And so in terms of the kind of information that we are taking, in terms of the challenges, in terms of the opportunities, we may miss out some of those things, right? So my first suggestion for you is to keep in mind, what is it that I'm actually focusing on in the way that I'm choosing to deal with these crises, and how can I widen the focus for a more broader, more holistic view of both the challenges as well as the opportunities that are there in front of me, right? And so then that comes to the second part of this, which is that if I'm going to be paying attention to a lot of information, then at some point there's going to be a lot of cognitive overload for me, right? So then what should I do? Because there are different perspectives. There's I can get stuck as to what should I pay attention to, what should I ignore, right? So when we're looking at the kind of information that we are faced with, how can I listen and how can I learn quicker from multiple sources so that I can differentiate between what is rumor and speculation versus facts? Now, for some of us, we have these WhatsApp fact finders, and so that's very useful for us, but that's not always going to be the source of information for us. So what I would like to ask you to reflect on is, one is, what is my learning preference? Do I normally, naturally like to go out, like to explore, try out different things? Or am I more of a traditionalist, more of a conservative person in the way that I think about things? Because that's going to influence the way that I perceive the information that I do receive, right? Secondly, who am I asking for information? There are multiple sources that we need to work on. What we all tend to do is we tend to focus on the 2 or 3 good friends or trusted advisors that we have. Now, our trusted advisors have their own learning preferences and will come from their own perspectives. Will that give me enough of a broad and wide range? Not really. So I need to go down to the front line, go and ask the department, get information from some of the most unlikely people as well, because they want to look at people who are sometimes thinking out of the box. What are they saying? What are they not saying? Do I need to form an advisory board? Now, I have no idea. I don't know if the university formed a crisis management team, whether you've got your own little war room where you're discussing all of these things. And if you're not, then maybe you should think about doing that, right? So who am I asking? The emphasis here is multiple sources of information and not just the 2 or 3 whom I usually rely upon. The third thing is, of course, analysis paralysis, right? So we need to be able to decide with speed over precision. And a lot of the times we want to be able to make the right kind of decision. But in this kind of a situation where things are changing so fast and so quickly, it's okay to have an imperfect decision. And we will adapt and modify as we go along, but be able to respond quickly, right? And then last, of course, is to think about the actual source, the legitimacy of the information I'm getting, because people have different priorities, they have different agendas. And so how legitimate is some of the information that I'm getting, right? I'm going to move to the third one. When we're looking at all of this information, the tendency that we have is that we tend to get more intellectual in our preparation, right? And we tend to leave the heart out, right? So what I'm looking at in terms of heart is I'm trying to say is that can you as a leader be vulnerable, right? Vulnerable enough to inspire trust, as we mentioned earlier on, and also secondly, look at how are my emotions influencing my decisions, all right? So when I say it's okay to be vulnerable, it means being okay to admit that I don't know some things, and or this is all that I actually know. Can I be open and transparent about that? A lot of the times we feel that as a leader we need to know all the answers, or we need to portray that image that that we know what we are doing. So we're more concerned about our reputation at that point, and we're worried that if we don't put that image across, how will people see us? Will they respect us? Will they respond to us? Well, the more vulnerable you are, the more likely people are going to respond to you, because they're seeing how genuine and authentic you are. Also, when we're talking about being open and transparent, if there are some hard decisions that you are making, then to be able to tell people that this is what we are prioritizing at this point and the reason why we're prioritizing, and not to leave it up to people to speculate on that. The second thing is to understand your own hot buttons and triggers. And this is very much related to the previous point where I talked about whether you're adventurous or a traditionalist, right? So does fear or a denial of what is going on around you drive some of your decisions? So when I think about why did I actually make that decision at that point in time, was it out of fear or was it out of denial of what all the facts were that were going on? So for example, if you look about a month ago, we were thinking about going ahead with all of the exams, despite knowing that this coronavirus was going on and despite knowing what we were seeing in other countries. So at that point, it was a bit of a denial that we were having. We caught up, thankfully, but I'm just trying to give you an example of how some of our decisions are being driven by our emotions as well, right? The third thing is, am I looking after myself, right? Some of you all right up in the beginning talked about how you're having some amount of anxiety, some amount of sadness, and emotions are contagious. There are people around you. Even if I'm not having it, I'm seeing it in others around you. And if you as the leader are flagging, right, then everything else is going to start flagging and start becoming vulnerable. So it's very important for you to be able to take care of yourself at this point, both emotionally, both physically, so that you are able to lead your people. And if you look online, there's a lot of recommendations right now about how leaders should be focusing on meditations just to help them to stay calm and centered and focused during this time, right? So question for you to ask yourself is, my reputation getting in the way? Am I connecting with my emotions? I'm going to move to the fourth one. And I'm going to put a question over to you. I want you to imagine that you are playing this violin. And for those of you all who are not musicians, just go along with me. Imagine that you are playing a violin and you are playing it at this concert hall, maybe Royal Albert Hall, or you want to put the Sydney Opera House, wherever you like. And you have a huge audience that is there in front of you, which consists of world leaders, very eminent personalities that is there in the audience as well. And let us say that mid-performance, and you're a very good performer, by the way, mid-performance, one of your violin strings breaks. What would you do?
Continue to play, apologize.
Continue to play, says Kerwin, sir. Okay.
play.
Anybody has a
Communicate to the audience that the technical
Yeah,
problem.
you apologize and then continue. This one string is not there.
Okay, so I apologize to the audience that my one string broke, but then I still continue to play. Right? Anyone has a different answer?
I think
Maybe
we
fix
need
the violin.
One more violin can be kept along with me to know about if something happens, I will be having a backup.
Okay, so I will keep a backup, but you know, that's assuming something happens. So you know, you didn't think that was going to happen, so you didn't have that choice. So you don't have the backup violin with you. You just have your own violin, and it has broken, and you have I don't know, pick whichever famous personality whom you like, who's there, Obama, Modi, whoever it is, who is there in the front row watching you play. What would you do?
I think fixing that string it takes only maybe 6 to 7 minutes. So we will announce that it's already gone. So without that particular string, anyway, we cannot play the whole song, the music. So fix the string and continue playing.
Okay. So
is it a solo performance or a group performance?
Oh, it's a solo performance.
Solo, okay.
It's just you up there on the big white huge stage with the spotlight on you.
Okay.
Isabel, there's one from the chat that says we have to continue. Either we can adapt with the alternative ways to play with the remaining strings, or we can simply not play the notes, but not possible as the rest of the violin players can support you. So just continue.
Okay, all right. There aren't any other violins. You're the only one. It's not a concert or a symphony.
Somebody's saying change the composition, adapt, just play with what you have, right?
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful examples. So let's say that we choose to continue.
No, it's.
Let's say that we choose to continue to play with one string broken. We may announce it or not, and we continue to play. But now let's say the second string also breaks. Now what do we do?
Obviously, we need to take a break. We need to rectify, because if you are a renowned performer, then that will affect the perfection of the performance. So it's always better that we apologize and take a break and then go ahead.
So all these people have paid like $500 to attend your concert.
Yeah, I would like to add to Joshi sir's point. If you're already a performer that is so well known, I'm sure you can always adapt or change the tune that you're playing, and that nobody would even notice.
Nobody would even notice. Okay, all right.
Say.
I would like to add something.
Say, in case if you are very passionate about it.
Yeah, I would like to say, if you are such a well-renowned performer, you should have anticipated if things go wrong, how do I face it? You should have gone prepared either with an extra violin or with extra strings. And in case it's just an extra strings, apologize, take a break, fix it, and then continue with it.
Okay, all right. Sir, you were also wanting to say something.
Good one. I have another. Yes, passionate. If you are a very passionate violinist, and if you have the top renowned people coming and attending your performance, I think you should be able to even play with two strings or even single string.
Okay, very interesting. All right.
And in case of the last string, in case of the last string breaks, then you say just apologize and go ahead.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. This actually happened at a concert where a well-renowned violinist was actually playing. After the first string broke, they continued to play without stopping to apologize. They just went ahead and played because, like some of you pointed out, they were very good skill-wise and they could. But then when the second string broke, and if you notice on the picture over there with the violin, you just have 4 strings on it. So then the second string broke, he actually stopped and he asked the audience, do you want me to continue playing or would you want me to stop and restring and then play? Because what happens when I restring is that I need to keep tuning it again and again every now and then, because as the string stretches, because it's a new one. And the audience all said, go ahead and play. right? Even with the two strings, and they were willing for the person to do that. And so what I want to connect this to is in terms of how do I optimize my resources that I have to respond in different ways, right? So all of us right now at this point in time, we're all on this call and we're all trying to optimize our resource right now itself, right? So the first things that we need to keep in mind is that, am I actually waiting for things to return to normal? Can I let go of the way that things were done in the past, and because am I missing opportunities because I'm worried about the future? In the kind of decisions that you all are taking in your teams or as a leadership group, are your decisions more of let's try and make it as much as possible the way it used to be before? Or am I willing to branch out, expand, and try something totally different and new and optimize it in that sense, right? So some of us might be getting back into our comfort zones, trying to do things as much as possible the old way, because that's what we're comfortable with. But like I said, this is a point where you need to challenge yourself and ask, is there a different way of doing this? And the old way may not be good enough anymore for us, right? Secondly, for my team to be able to generate new ideas, obviously I'm not going to be the only one who can come up with ideas. My team can, but can I create a welcoming environment and space for them to be able to generate ideas where they feel that it is safe for me to give an idea and that will be accepted on its merit, right? Third thing is, as leaders, at this point in time, I need to focus more on the leadership aspect. So I need to delegate more out, right? And I need to trust my staff to make the tough decisions. I need to resist the temptation to take over and try and do things all myself. Give it to them, let them do it. Let it trickle down, cascade down, rather than me trying to do everything myself, right? And so I'm coming to my last point. Some of you may recognize this picture. I don't know if you do. From the Magnificat, we were the staff choir, and we went to 3 campuses. We were from 3 campuses. We're a whole completely mixed group of people, non-teaching, teaching, people who were HODs and directors and deans, and then people who were just regular folks. And as you can see from this picture, all of us had a jolly good time. We really enjoyed ourselves. And the point that I want to make here is that how can I, during this crisis, engage my people, right? And by engaging my people, you need to, as a leader, take the temperature, find out how they're doing. Now, by take the temperature, I don't literally mean stand at when they're coming back to the university, take their temperature, but learn about their challenges, check in on them, be curious, be empathetic, ask for their ideas, like I mentioned, not only to show that you care what they're thinking about, but it's also easier to get their buy-in once we finally decide on what we're going to be doing. Most importantly, give them purpose. This is the perfect time and the correct time for you to be talking about the university's mission, its vision, its values, where we talk about love of fellow beings and all of those things. What are we planning to do? When we're communicating with them, we need to over communicate with them. So we need to tell them why we want them to do what it is, what impact we're anticipating, and give them things to work towards, right? And then lastly, for all those people out there who are doing so much, which include all of you, to recognize and to appreciate all those high performers and make sure that that Christ-like spirit goes out, that we are having that communication, showing what is it that we are doing well, and we recognize that, right? So I'm going to end over here. I've done my 5 points. I'm going to end over here by saying that at this point in time, your staff, your faculty, they are looking up to you, their deans, their directors, their head of departments, whatever may be your position, to be the beacon of hope for them, to help them navigate through this fog and thing. That they know that you are having a hard time. They know that there's a storm bustling around, but they are still looking to you, right? And it's up to you to help them to have hope, to help heal them, and to be much more visible for them, right? And with that, I'm going to end my presentation. Thank you.